Hey guys, welcome back to Real Housewives Recaps. I'm so glad you're here. Today we are picking up with this book. Why am I showing two books? I explained it on the first episode. This is the second episode of the series, but in case you're just joining or you just want to watch this one, I get it. This book was released in two forms, it sounds like. I ended up reading the one, or I'm reading the one on the left, but the author assures us it's the same book. Sounds like here in America, we got the copy on the left. A lot of other places got the copy on the right. Doesn't really matter. Sounds like it's the same book. No problem. Okay, so if you hear me talk about The Making of a King, that it's the same book. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, let's get into this. So the first part, I covered the intro, chapter 1, chapter 2, and here we're picking up on chapter 3, and here's the author saying, hey, don't worry, it's the same book. I don't know why they did that. I know they do that with some books, something about different regions and titles. Who knows? Who cares? I'm going to forewarn you on this one. I'm enjoying the heck out of this book, so don't think it's anything but that. I love this book. I'm really enjoying the way this writer communicates things, and I really am. This part's hard. This really goes into the passing of Queen Elizabeth, and if you follow me at all or know me at all, which a lot of you do, I love Queen Elizabeth, and notice I don't say loved, I say I love her. Wonderful lady. I'm a huge fan, Her Majesty the late Queen, and I get a little sad talking about it, but we have to talk about it. This chapter is important. Now, if you're looking for the juice, it's here. We go into some Harry and Meghan stuff and their awful behavior around the time of the Queen's passing, so don't you worry, we'll get into that. If you're like, Jen, what's up with the pictures? Well, it's a book about King Charles. So a lot of these all these pictures have to do with King Charles. And they're in no particular order. I just like to put up different backgrounds. I feel like we get sick of looking at just Harry and Meghan stuff. So let's take a look at King Charles as this book's about him. But I would like to start off by saying I really am enjoying this book very much. I had talked about in the first episode. I'm going to say it again. It's not that I'm the biggest fan of Charles, good or bad. I respect his position. Honestly, I'm much more interested in William and Catherine, Prince and Princess of Wales. I'm a huge fan of Her Majesty the late Queen. So, I'm fine with Charles. I respect him, but I'm enjoying this book very much, and it's kind of shedding a new light on him for me. So I am enjoying getting to know him, if you will, as well as Queen Camilla. But all that said, let's jump into this. I'm sending hugs. Send hugs back at me. We'll share some tea. We'll share some vodka, whatever you want to share. We'll share a pint. We'll share a cuppa. We'll get through this together, all right? Thanks so much for being here. Honk, honk, everyone. I'm Jen, if I didn't say that. Anyway, so we pick up on chapter 3, Robert Hardman's book, and it's called London Bridge. And in case you're not aware, I'm sure you are, but in case you're not, London Bridge refers to... Basically, it's the plan they had for the Queen's passing. It was called Operation London Bridge, and it's the plans for the Queen's funeral. I say the Queen, you know who I mean, Her Majesty the late Queen. I understand that there's now Queen Camilla. When I'm talking about the Queen here, I mean Her Majesty the late Queen Elizabeth. And I put this preface in the last one. I'll put it here. I understand that he is King Charles. I respect his position. When I'm talking, sometimes I get a little bit more, lazy in my speech. So if I call him Charles, you know who I mean. No disrespect. I do the same with everybody else. No disrespect at all intended. But anyway, so again, when I'm saying the Queen here, I mean Her Majesty the late Queen, Queen Elizabeth. My favorite. Love her so much. Especially, even reading this, I just get teary-eyed and upset, and it's all good. It's just hard to read this stuff again because I love her so much. Anyway, all right, we can do this. Chapter 3, Queen's Passing. So it involves, I'm not going to go over every single detail because you probably know a lot of them, but in a nutshell, I'd been so focused on where William was, again, Prince of Wales, where William was, where Catherine was, things like that, and who found out when and how and who and what was going on. So I really didn't know where Charles was when he got the news. So in this chapter, the author, Robert Hardman, goes into that and explains that he was actually driving at the Balmoral estate. It sounds like he had spent the morning with Her Majesty the late Queen and had been at her bedside. And then they didn't know that this was the end, and so he had taken a break. He had gone back. I already forgot the name of it. He has a place right near Balmoral. He had gone to his place and then was driving, headed to Balmoral when he got the call. And the author goes into how Her Majesty the late Queen received her call when it was her turn to take over as queen. Her father, King George, had passed away in his sleep, and she happened to be visiting Kenya at the time. She was watching wildlife when she got the call. So it was interesting and sad to go into the history and how that occurred. So let's see here. Princess Anne, the Princess Royal, had happened to be there at Balmoral when she had business in the area, so she was staying there and visiting her mother, and she was there and made the call. It's hard to talk about. Princess Anne had made the call, basically, and let them know what was going on. All right. So before passing, Charles knew that this was the end, or assumed that this was the end. They did go into a story I didn't realize. I guess in 2021, Queen Elizabeth, Her Majesty the late Queen, had gotten very ill, and they actually thought she might pass before Christmas. I didn't know that, but she surprised everybody, and she spent a little time in bed, but then they didn't say what of. She had recovered and was back on her feet again. So they said after that she did have the mobility issues that we had kind of learned about, but she didn't really want the public to know about that. But this time, unfortunately, that was not the case. It was the end for her. So, all right, let's move from the sadness that we all feel and get outraged, shall we? Let's talk about what happened. We've heard, if you read it, if you heard me read it, if you heard your other favorite YouTubers talk about it, we heard Harry's account of what happened in Spare. Well, Robert Hardman, the author of this book, who I'm enjoying very much, his writing styles, and I like him very much because he can't stand Harry and Meghan either. He kind of goes into this and calls them out. So let's talk about it. Let's see. If you're following along with me, I'm on page 65 of the book. And again, it's probably around that page if you're reading the other version of it. I think they're almost the same pages. I don't know if the printing was a little different size in one, because I think one had like 6 more pages than the other. But again, we're assured it's the same book. So it's around that page. Page 65, if you're reading along with me, I'm just going to read this part of the book to you, and then we'll discuss. So again, this is, they had a pretty good feeling that, unfortunately, Her Majesty the Queen's health was deteriorating, and it was formerly Prince of Wales, now King Charles, that was making calls. He called William and he called Harry. So according to the book, Prince William's team immediately liaised with the offices of his 2 royal uncles. By 12:30 p.m., the Royal Air Force had arranged for an envoy to fly them from RAF Norholt to Aberdeen. Takeoff would be at 2:30 p.m. Fortuitously, those two, I won't say their titles, Harry and Meghan, also happened to be in Britain for a few days of charity engagements. In his explosive memoir, Spare, that one says he received a call from his father warning him that the Queen's health had taken a turn. Now, he's quoting out of Harry's book at this point, and the quote says, I immediately texted Willie. He's just so rude, calling him Willie. I immediately texted Willie to ask whether he and Kate, because he can't bother to call her Catherine, he and Kate were flying up. If so, when and how? No response, writes Harry. Meg and I looked at flight options. All right, so that's out of Harry's mouth. Well, the author goes on to say, clearly Prince William did not regard this as the appropriate moment for the intensely difficult conversation he needed to have with his brother. A few weeks earlier, it had been widely reported that Prince Harry was delaying publication of his memoir until after the Queen's passing. There could be little scope for dialogue until its contents were known. The sense of reckless betrayal following those two interview, I won't say their titles, with Oprah Winfrey the year before, and its vague, unanswerable half claims of institutional istwords. If you're new here, I say istwords because YouTube doesn't like certain words. You know what I'm talking about. It involves race, sex, things like that, like ist. All right. And hostility towards Meghan still lingered. Quote, some of the family were probably ready to give him a piece of their mind, says one of those in the midst of this fast-moving turn of events. All right, so then he continues and says, this is the precise sort of situation where different royal teams talk to one another to get things done. Had those two been keen to share a flight, they could have asked their staff to contact Prince William's staff. They had all their numbers, says a senior Kensington Palace aide who is adamant that there was no call from those two camp that morning. Ding, ding, ding. I have always said that. I think everything they say is a lie about Harry and Meghan. And of course, he's going to spin the story to make himself look like a victim. Let's continue. Harry and Meghan had decided to make their own travel arrangements and announced that they would be canceling their remaining engagements for the day, at which Harry writes in his stupid book Spare, he received another call from his father to say he should come on his own. We can easily imagine the dread from which the Prince of Wales, of course, at the time, that would have been Charles, approached the call. Those two, capacity for taking offense was well known. I love this writer. And everyone was conscious, I never say that word right, conscious, that any conversation could end up in public domain. So pause from reading and just my thoughts on this. We know this, but to reread it makes me ill. It makes me sick. Thinking about what everybody was going through dealing with. At this point, she hadn't yet passed, but they knew that it was most likely on the way. Dealing with that, and then have to worry about these two and what shenanigans they would pull. It really, truly disgusts me. Making it all about themselves, as per usual. All right, let's continue reading this part. I'm stalling because I lost my place. Okay, here we go. Let's see. Any conversation could end up in public domain, as indeed this one did 3 months later in his book. I love this writer. Harry says his father was, quote, nonsensical and disrespectful. I'm sorry. He is losing his mother. Does he need to be respectful for you and your precious ego and feelings and bullshit right now? I don't think so. All right, let's continue reading. As he explained that he did not want Meghan coming to Balmoral. Let's see here. And then there's a quote from Dum Dum's book that says, I wasn't having it. Don't ever speak about my wife that way, is the Duke's record of his response. At which point his father explained that he simply didn't want lots of people at the house and that Catherine, now Princess of Wales, then Duchess of Cambridge, was not coming either. That breaks my heart. I'm pausing the reading really quick to say that breaks my heart too. I've said it before and I'll say it here. I sound like a child, but I don't care. It's not fair. It's not fair because Catherine had a relationship with Her Majesty, the late Queen. She obviously respected her. They had a love there. So it's not fair that Catherine had to miss out because, Meghan might get her feelings hurt. Oh, okay. And did Meghan seem to care about the Queen getting her feelings hurt when she went on national TV and lied? No? Okay, great. Let's continue on. Let's see here. All right. So then they're quoting out of Harry's book and they say, then that's all you needed to say, Harry replied. To which one family friend asks, why then did Harry even feel the need to put this in his book? The Prince of Wales, talking about Charles at the time, had enough to think about. That's what I'm saying too. That's what we've all said, without worrying about where those two next grievance was coming from. I wish they hadn't called them at all. I know that's petty, but I don't care. Those two suck. By now, Harry had missed all available flights to Aberdeen. He set about chartering his own plane. It was just as well that he did not know the real reason for the Duchess of Cambridge's absence from Balmoral. She had certainly not been asked to stay away. Rather, it was start of new term at school for all three children. George, Charlotte, and Louis had already been for their induction day at Lambrook, their Berkshire, I hope I'm saying that right, Berkshire preparatory school the previous morning, 7th of September. It was the Duchess who had decided that one parent should be with the children on such an important day. As one royal aide acknowledges, quote, it was by luck rather than judgment, but it made it a lot easier to tell Harry he was coming alone. So again, just think about that. They all had to look out during this time for Harry's precious ego. He makes me sick. His precious ego and his stupid wife, his Instagram-loving bee-wife, and excuse me. And so they all had to work around how those two felt and how those two were making it about themselves. Now, I've heard the other version of events, not quite this, that Harry and Meghan were having blowout fights. Meghan was throwing a fit over the phone. They stalled everything. It was because of this stalling that the Prince of Wales, unfortunately, was not there when the Queen passed. All right, let's keep reading. It should be remembered that even at this point, no one knew quite how bad the situation had become. Oh, I had another thought, which was, man, I love Catherine, Princess of Wales, so much. Obviously, she did not know that the Queen was passing. I feel confident in saying, although I'm just guessing, I feel confident in saying she would have been there had she known. But I love her so much, and she's taking care of her children. Imagine that, something that Harry and Meghan know less than nothing about. Let's keep going. All right. It should be remembered that even at this point, no one knew quite how bad the situation had become. There was serious mounting alarm, yet no panic. At this stage, people were still thinking in terms of days rather than hours, let alone an hour or two, says one member of staff. Hence the fact that the Prince of Wales and Duchess of Cornwall decided to leave the Queen to rest for a while under the altering gaze of the Princess Royal and Angela Kelly, while the Reverend Kenneth Mackenzie, long-serving Church of Scotland minister, I'll never be able to say this right, is it Crathy? I hope I'm saying that right, at Crathy Church, and chaplain to the Queen, read to her from her Bible. Okay, and then they go into the details of the Queen's passing. For my own mental health and sanity, I'm just going to keep going past this. The good news is that the doctor assured everybody that she basically fell asleep and felt no pain. So there's that. All right. I'm disgusted by those other two. I'm breathing. I'm trying to think of how to articulate this. I'm disgusted. Okay, so then they go into the details. Again, Charles, he was actually behind the wheel of his car. He famously does not carry a cell phone. He was with Queen Camilla, or she would have been Duchess of Cornwall at the time. And somebody, I forget who they said was with him, and one of his men was with him, and he got a vibration in his pocket, got the phone call, handed it to Charles, and was told to pull over. And so then it goes into how Charles had to make decisions very fast and then break the news to the rest of the family. So it was then that Charles broke the news to William. And at that point, William was driving or being driven from Aberdeen to Balmoral. All right. I can't stand them, but we got to do it. I need to read you this part, or go over this part with you as well. If you're following along with me, we're now on page 70. Oh my goodness, here we go. All right. So the king was thus able to break the news to Prince William, the Duke of York, the Earl of Wessex, as they were driving from Aberdeen Airport to the castle. The Queen's beloved niece, Lady Sarah Chatto, who was nearby, arrived in tears because the sudden decline and passing of the Queen had been so much swifter than anyone expected. Nearly all the members of the royal family had been unable to say a formal goodbye. Okay, everybody take a collective breath. Here we go. those two. All right, talking about Harry. This time he's talking about Harry. I won't say his title. Harry was still in the air and out of contact. In his memoir, Spare, he suggests that no one had told him, and he was reduced to learning the news from BBC website as the plane was landing. Well, this author, Robert Hardman, alleges not exactly. A member of the palace staff says that the king had been urgently trying to make contact with his younger son. There were repeated attempts to get through, but no calls were going through because Harry was airborne. So again, Harry, in an attempt to play victim, make it about himself, make he and Meghan the victims here, and to allege things, in my opinion, it's just to further this narrative that the family was the Eastward and they wouldn't talk to him because he's married to Meghan. I don't even know. You can't even justify it. I can't with those two. So that's it for them. The chapter wraps up explaining that the Queen is said to have known that the end was imminent and that she had planned accordingly. And then I'm really enjoying this author's writing. He is very respectful of Her Majesty the late Queen and goes into that she was a wonderful and hardworking woman who was completing paperwork until about 2 days before her passing, and really went into all the things she was working on and how she didn't want to let people down, and was really just an amazing woman. So I'm going to end it here and we'll move on from this. But I just wanted to give this chapter the respect it deserved and give this topic the respect that it deserved. And then we'll go into more on everything else in the shenanigans, of course, of Hank and Skank. You guys, this was kind of tough. I don't love talking about this stuff. I get upset about it. I love Her Majesty the late Queen. So let's all take a deep breath and send each other big hugs and cups of tea. And remember the Queen and how wonderful and lovely she not just was, but is. And her hard work and, I don't know, all the amazing things she's done. Anyway, guys, thank you as always for sticking with me. It means the whole wide world to me. I can't tell you how much it means. And I can't wait to bring you more chapters of this book. I can't say enough how much I'm enjoying this, and I hope you are enjoying my recaps of this as well. It's a pretty long book, so we're in for a ride. I figured, let's just keep going. My original plan was just to basically skim it and get to the Harry and Meghan of it all and talk about how awful they are, but I'm enjoying this book so much that I don't mind. It doesn't seem like a chore to get through, so I'm enjoying it. So I hope you are too. And again, thank you for everything. If you want to further support, there's several ways to do it. Of course, we have the merch. Check it out. Recollections may vary. I think that applies here. Not Bloody Likely also applies. Love Princess Anne, the Princess Royal. Great saying. And so much more. Drunk Goose Club. Honk honk. And if you're new here and you're like, Jen, what's with all the honking and the goose stuff? Well, that's because one of Mary. See, I'm combining Harry and Meghan. Meghan and Harry. Mary. One of Meghan's fans told me I sound like a drunk goose. Well, I actually find that hilarious, and I say honk honk, everybody. Honk honk. Thanks so much for being here. I really appreciate you all. I can't wait to read your comments on this one, and can't wait to bring you more stuff like this, and I will talk to you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.